Andrew Green with the super chat, $20 super chat, is coming in the room swinging. Says people missing the point of what Boosie was trying to say. Vlad was hating on Nas as usual, and Boosie was just even scale. He was saying if you put Nas in the irrelevant category, then Jay is there too. Devil's advocate. Cool. Another super chat from Andrew Green says, being objective, Jay's winning the popularity contest over Nas all day, but let's not act like Jay-Z's recent relevance isn't always attached to someone else. Not a single solo dolo song since 2017. Shaking my head. And what song was that? I mean, should we just go into it since that's what people want to talk about? I mean, I'm gonna go on a 3,000 diatribe here, and I'm gonna go ahead and give a disclaimer to the people out there. I am a Jay-Z fan. When we started this podcast, Coop and I used to debate who was the best, Jay-Z and Nas, and I was on the Jay-Z end of things, right?
Right, correct.
But we got to be real here.
Evidence. It's called
we
evidence.
We have to be real. How can you be... All right, let's just say this. We talk about relevance. What is relevance, right? Relevance is, when that person comes across your news timeline or whatever, what is it about, right? He said musically, and Boosie said that he's not relevant musically. Whenever we hear news about Jay, it's never about music. It's never about a release. It's never really about a song. You know what I mean? It might be a verse here and there, but let's be real. Even with Neck and Wrist, God Did, it's not really getting played like that at the end of the year like that. So, my personal opinion, and I've said this before. Go ahead.
I find Neck and Wrist to be more enjoyable now that it hasn't just been totally just blasted and played out. It's a much better song.
It's a good song. Is it earth shattering? Is it Peppers? No. You know what I mean? Is it no. All right, but this is what I was gonna say though. I was going to say, the last time we want to talk about being relevant musically, I think we have to be real honest with ourselves. The last album that Jay put out was 2017, right? And that was 444. And I don't know if people want to be real to this degree either, but none of those songs on that album took over that year, did they? Or am I tripping?
Not that I can.
Because if you ask somebody what song was on there, they'll probably say "Story of OJ," right? And I think that it's a general consensus in hip hop that track alone is more synonymous with Pusha T than it is with Jay at this point.
It's a possibility.
All right. Okay. So I don't think there's any quote unquote relevant songs on there. And if we go back another album. We go back to Holy Grail. Mm-hmm. The one song I remember getting played from Holy Grail like that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Fuck With Me, You Know I Got It. That was more so a Ross thing.
It felt like a Ross record too, didn't it?
And Ross actually ended up putting it on his album, Mastermind, I believe it was, as a bonus, where he has 2 verses. Sure? Yeah, he put it on there. Okay, and so now
was it on the first version of Mastermind?
I think it's a bonus on the extended one or deluxe or something.
Okay. I just don't remember that. That's why I'm asking. I'm really asking questions.
So, and let's go back. Then we got Blueprint 3. Now you got songs like Run This Town. That's a viable one. Now you got songs like Death of Auto-Tune. Boom, musical relevance, right? Empire State of Mind, huge hit. On to the next one. So when we're talking about music relevancy and the way that we're used to seeing it from a juggernaut like Jay, I think we have to go back 13 years. So what Boosie said is not off. Now, he's not saying Jay-Z's not relevant as a person. Obviously, he's always making business deals, making moves. He's in music. He's managing artists. He's, taking hold of careers, launching artists, even if we go back to J. Cole. And things of that nature. But if we're talking about musically as an artist, I don't think that's an off statement. What say you?
I don't think that you're off, and I don't think Boosie is necessarily off if we're just specifically keeping it to the musical aspect
Yeah.
of it. And in relationship to a few things. One, his prior thriving nature in previous climates and environments. Like his adaptability has been one of his greatest traits, wouldn't you say?
Right.
So you get compared when you're that great. You usually get compared to former versions of yourself more than anything, a la a Nas, a Tom Brady, a LeBron James, a Michael Jordan. You know,
Yeah.
so same thing I think would apply here, and in that regard, it's valid. Okay.
Yeah.
In the regard of just, I thought he made a very viable point when he said, it's like, when I'm outside at the places that I'm at, he's like, and I be outside, he's like, they don't be playing Jay or Nas. And it's like, I cannot deny the fact, keep in mind, I really haven't been outside like I used to. I definitely don't go to a lot of the places that I used to go that Boosie might be like still traveling to. But I wasn't hearing Jay or Nas in those spots last time I frequented those places either. And it's like you said, and if it was getting played, it was something from the era where they were more prominent in their stature on radio.
Right, some of the classics. Andrew Green with another super chat says, "Keep it a buck." Jay's last two solo albums were attached to Samsung and Tidal exclusives for numbers and inflated relevance, not just the real tapping in. Since 2017, all features and collabo albums. It's just facts. And again, I think that, and something else Andrew Green brought up that I thought was important, just framing the conversation, right? So, from what I understand, and I don't watch Vlad interviews like that, but I know what people have told me. Basically, it sounded like Vlad was trying to get Boosie in that whole Nas is irrelevant conversation. And it sounds like Boosie combated him with, like, if you're gonna say he's irrelevant, then how are you gonna say Jay-Z is relevant musically? Because Nas actually has albums that are current. Nas actually has stuff that people are rocking to. Maybe not in the spots that Boosie's at, but I'm sure some spots are playing stuff from KD3 or KD2 or possibly even Magic or KD1. YKTV I'm sure is out there too. But with that being said, like I said when 21 Savage initially said what he said in that chat or whatnot. I always forget the name of that app. I'm tripping. Um, when he said that Eminem and Jay-Z are irrelevant and Nas is irrelevant, it's like, okay, well, explain that. Musically explain that. And there's no way you really can. And I think that's what Boosie kind of pulled out to Vlad in that situation. Like, okay, well, if you're going to say Nas is irrelevant, how are you musically going to say Jay-Z's irrelevant? Because everything that we talk about Jay for at this point is either a deal that's being closed, something with the NFL, something being sold. It's not about music. So I think that's a fair assessment.
If you want to look at it on a musical level, it's definitely a fair assessment in relationship. I was about to say, and so to finish my point, well, if you want to talk about in relationship to who's considered to be his, let's not call them rivals, his main competitor for the status of being the greatest rapper of all time, well, he's not as musically relevant as that guy right now either, because that guy just made just on the basis, we don't even have to talk about quality, just on the fact that he just made 4 projects in the last 2.5 years. And I mean, if you think about the amount of guest appearances on there in relationship to the amount of songs made, it's like, I mean, you understand most of what you heard like the last 2.5 years has been a solo shot.
I mean, especially this last one.
This last one is a solo shot.
I know. I don't think I've heard a hip hop.
But Magic only, think about it. Magic, how many verses?
There's this ASAP on there, right?
Right. Now let's go to KD2. Who we got on there? We got Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
EPMD.
Yeah. Eminem. Yeah.
Hit Boy's actually rapping on there.
Mm-hmm.
On Composure.
Yeah.
And then you go to the first one where he's got the Firm. So that's 3 more. So
YKTV.
YKTV, yeah.
Spicy.
So he's up. Right. So he's had about 12 appearances out of these 50 songs.
Well, YKTV's on KD2, right? So yeah, but I met Spicy on one. But yeah, it's just so much material. But and again,
and most of these songs that have guest appearances, there's multiples on there. So like most of the songs that you're hearing on solo, think about it, YKTV, well, that's 2 solo appearances. That's 2 guest appearances, you know?
This current solo shot, though, this
Yeah.
current solo shot, it's like, when's the last time we heard any MC of his caliber even do a solo album with no features that length and
Forest
that
Hills
quality?
Drive.
Huh?
Forest Hills Drive.
Okay. It's been a minute ago. 36 Chambers with the super chat says the production on the Metro album was fire, no skips. Yo, we're gonna get to that.
We're gonna talk about
Metro's my guy, man. Eric Terrell with the super chat says, what 90s musical acts are relevant? None. I would say Nas. I would say Nas is relevant.
I mean, he has the #1 song and album on iTunes right now.
Yeah, I think that's pretty relevant.
I think that's relevant.
The L Web with the super chat says, that's my biggest criticism of Jay. He always needs to ride whatever popular wave is out. In 97, he was chasing the bad boy sound. In 98, he rode the Rough Riders wave.
I've said this multiple times on the early versions of this show when Mike used to be on the other side of the fence and made these claims. So you're not saying anything new to either one of us, per se.
I think that, and I agree with those things, right? But I think that that's what made the Blueprint so special at that time, because it was like he wasn't riding the wave at that point. Because even on the Dynasty, it was kind of a mixed bag or whatever. Because you had Rick Rock, you know what I'm saying? He was kind of piggybacking off of the West Coast production of Rick Rock and what was going on there. And then he had like, you know, maybe the 1-900 Hustle, and then he'll have It Can Be Life, and then you got the Neptune. So it was like, okay, let me find out what's working. But the Blueprint was like the first, and it's funny he called it the actual Blueprint, but you know, but was riding waves before. But it was like, okay, now we got a sound. But again, that's why I say what I say in terms of Kanye West. I believe Kanye West was the driving force behind the Blueprint, and I think that Just Blaze was, at the moment, and I say this respectfully, was put there to replicate a different flavor of kind of what Kanye already started. Bink as well. I mean, you know, I think Bink and Kanye already had those styles because Bink did 1-900 Hustler. Go ahead, my bad.
No, you're cool. I mean, I think the Blueprint production-wise, if you look at it, I mean, that's actually RZA's blueprint, like production-wise, when you listen to it.
Well, I mean, it's an updated formula of it, you know.
Right. So it's like even when you look at like the Blueprint and like production-wise, what separates it from a lot of his other albums is the production level and the consistency of it and the feel of it.
The soulfulness.
Yeah, and the use of the soul sample properly.
Yeah. Because there really wasn't any soul in any other efforts.
I would say. Maybe even not innovative.
It wasn't any soul in any of the other efforts, with the exception of certain points on Reasonable Doubt with stuff like Can I Live. You don't think Can I Live is soulful? You know,
Politics. No, I was just thinking about that song. No, of course it's soulful. Yeah, I love Can
And
I
think that, you know, the Blueprint got something, we were able to get something else out of him because of how soulful that music was, and he rose to the occasion. But
I think again, he got personal again.
He did.
Reasonable Doubt is personal.
Mm-hmm.
Blueprint is personal, and it goes back to what you say. Well, conversational Jay is what?
Yeah, it's the best. That's him at his best when he's conversational. And
so most people are conversational about, you know, themselves and the things that they're passionate about and what's going on with them. These are the things that people talk about with their friends. What's going on with you? How have you been? Well,
when you hear Jay rapping the conversational Jay,
like that, yeah.
When you hear him rapping that conversational tone, it makes you feel like when he does the other stuff, he's like not even trying. And he's that good where it's like, he can go out there and make hit records while not even really trying like that. You know what I mean? And when you hear a song like a You Don't Know or Heart of the City, and those are songs that he really wants to do. But when he has to go out there and make Fiesta remix or Give It To Me, and I love Give It To Me, you listen to him rhyming on those records in relation to the other records, he's not even trying. But the Blueprint was able to pull that out of him where he could actually make notable records that, you know, that spoke to his soul and spoke to others. Song Cry. I mean, a lot of people who weren't around for Reasonable Doubt really point to Song Cry as one of those records.
No, I just think when you're as great as him that you're looking for a challenge, and a lot of the times he hasn't been challenged per se. So when you're saying like a lot of the times he's not trying, well, he's not trying on the Fiesta remix because it's like, well, it's first of all, it's not his song. Yeah. It's R. Kelly's song. Now, contextualize that to something like that we were just talking about, the Do It Again verse, where he's got a young Beanie Siegel on there going first, and he's listening to C ride that beat like that, and that's on his album.
Yeah,
he's like, you're not about to do that to me on my project.
The L Web of the super chat says,
hold on 1 second, un momento.
The L Web of the super chat says, that's why I give more credit to Jay on Kingdom Come. The album was mid, but it was something different for him. You know, I will say that about Kingdom Come. He did take a chance on there. But again, he took chances on the Blueprint as well, and that actually turned out well. I think there were some chances even being taken on the Blueprint 3. But I've said this before in the show, and I don't want to sound like a broken record. It sounds like the common denominator is when Kanye West is somewhere in the boards or in the room, the stuff turns out right. The experiments turn out right when Kanye's in the room. And when he's not, you get Kingdom Come or you get Holy Grail. You know? It's very the truth. Or 444. Like,
very unfortunate. Oh, make it stop.
It's just what it is. Like, and this is coming off of Watch the Throne. You know what I'm saying? And people highly regard Watch the Throne. And they took a lot of chances on there too. For better or for worse. Mad Max with the super chat says, I work with kids who were 17 to 22. They ain't bumping Hove up here. And last age range that they really bumped Hove was 23, maybe to 29 crowd. The youngest. That's because the 90s babies were put on to them. Well, that's interesting. That's interesting because what is there to bump? That's what I'm going to say. Because we live in such a fast-paced world, and I told you this offline. If we be perfectly honest, and I know he's on tour right now, people are speaking highly of the tour, but musically, when it comes to current music, someone can make the argument that Kendrick Lamar is not musically relevant. Is he musically as relevant as Kodak Black? He can't be. The one song that he has on the album that gets played has Kodak on it. Jay Short with the super chat says, appreciate the $20 super chat too. He says, I'm in the minority, but Forest Hill isn't a classic. Everything on there have been done before and better. It's not exceptional in originality or execution. It's good, but folks overrating it because it's cold. I think that's
I'm very disappointed that you feel that way, quite frankly.